Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Property Hustler Show. My name is Andrew, and today Ping and I are joined by a very special guest, Brady McDonald. If you haven't followed him already, you ought to. He is the founder of the current 0 to 100 program, where he is doing challenges and focusing on fitness. And it's just a whole philosophy on how you can scale up and grow yourself as a person and as an entrepreneur. He is a Canadian-born real estate investor and developer. He started off in Canada, is now investing in the US. He has tons of experience to share with us, and we're going to be focusing today on how he fixed tons of problems that a lot of people went through, took his business and 10x'd it by focusing on the key things such as his body and mind first. So we're going to talk about this right now. Brady, it's great having the show.
Thanks a lot. I'm excited to be here.
In general, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is I've been really interested in the TRT stuff that you're doing.
Yeah.
That's relatively recent for you, right?
Yeah, it's maybe 3 weeks now, 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
I didn't even know anything about it. And so how it came up was one of my guy that's in my mastermind, he's got a fitness program and he's just test your testosterone levels and cortisol levels, because I'm 39 and because I always have this layer of fat, right? He's you bet your metabolism's super low because of all the endurance stuff. I'm like, oh, that's a really good question because it'd be nice to get that dialed in. So I started looking into it, and then all these other things you sleep better, you'll lose that belly fat, gain more muscle, and just have more energy overall. Obviously, sex drive and other things. I used to have coffee at 2 to 3 in the afternoon just to get by, a walking zombie, and that's gone. I used to go to bed at 8 because I was survival, and now I can stay up past 9. I don't know. I thought I was just getting old. Just my testosterone was super low. So
that's interesting. So you went for a blood panel, and then the doctor recommended this as an option, right? It seems like there's a lot of conflicting information if you're just looking it up online, right? And so I think a lot of people are like, hey, maybe I should just start slow. So are you starting with small doses and kind of thing, or?
So it's prescribed based on what the doctor determined based on your levels. The goal is to get it to for me, 600 to, 800, 600 to 1,000, somewhere in that range. So the risk from my research is that if you get it too high, there's risks associated with that. Before, years ago, they thought that it causes cancer too, but they've proven that it doesn't. What it does do is that if you do have a certain type of cancer, then it actually will just expose it faster, which may be a good thing, but it doesn't create it. Yeah. So, I mean, dude, I didn't realize know anything about this, but once I start talking about it, everybody I know in the US is on it. Almost everybody.
Yeah.
All my dudes, super high performers, super successful, everybody's on TRT.
Yeah. That's actually another thing I started to realize. We started going to some conferences, and as I started looking into it, I started to realize that some of these really high energy guys, jacked looking, they're talking about, it's listen, you got to take care of yourself. You got to watch your energy levels. You got to do this. And they're running businesses. They're working out. It seems like they just don't stop. And I'm like, what are you eating? Right. And it's a lot of these guys are doing something like TRT.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's not that it's making them better, or it's just making them the way they were, right? I mean, it's making us the way we should feel if our normals were at normal levels.
Yeah.
Right? And so generally these high performers are like that anyway, right? Yeah. And that they're naturally like that. And so I still obviously perform very well with very low testosterone levels, extremely low. The doctor couldn't physically, the fitness aspect, couldn't believe that I was able to do the things that I've done recently. The successful mindset is you're going to do it regardless, whether it's easy or not. And so, but to run the body like we run our businesses with a well-oiled machine, you got to look at your blood. I'm just learning about this now, man. I can't preach it too much, but I mean, you guys are watching, I'm just exploring it and trying to figure it out and sharing it. So
yeah, I'm 37 years old and I feel a little bit more sluggish. When you were talking about the coffee thing, I can relate to that. And I'm there's so many things I want to do, and I just don't feeling tired at earlier than I feel like I should be. And sometimes well, maybe I'm thinking too much, I'm working too much, I'm on too long. Yeah.
I think that's just the bullshit we tell ourselves. I mean, we may feel some of that stuff, but that's probably sort of normal too. But I think I would definitely get your test. You can do an at-home test. That's what I did to start. I didn't go to the doctor to start. I just ordered a test on Amazon.
Was that pretty close to what actually came back through the blood panel?
It was 203 normal levels. They say is ideally it should be somewhere around 600 to 1,000.
Yeah. The Amazon test was close to the blood panel test.
The blood panel test was 304 or 303, somewhere like that, a little bit higher.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think also I was doing less stress. Like I'd run like 100-mile race and stuff like shortly before, like my body was super stressed. So it was probably lower because of that.
Yeah. Okay. That stuff is amazing. And I feel like it's really good with the brand too, like 0 to 100. And I'm sure this also, like, it's almost in my mind, I think it clarifies and purifies everything so you can be going up to 100.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I'm just figuring all this out and sharing it with everybody as I go and figure it out. I haven't mastered any of it, but there's all different aspects of life. And most of us focus on money first. Once I started realizing that once I focus on my body first and get this thing dialed in, the money thing came easier. You develop a mindset that is just like bulletproof, right? Things get hard in relationships, things get hard in business. Like that is when you start to really win, is because you push and other people quit.
Yeah.
Right. That's why going to 0 to 100 is not just about, making money. It's like getting this body thing dialed in, right? That's ultimately what triggers this thing to fire on all cylinders.
What made you look into all of this? What was the triggering point for you?
The triggering point was back in 2021, probably, when I was just exhausted. We had the big boat. We were having great summers, but I was just exhausted. And I was just like, I need to do something different. And I'm going to try to I did the 75 hard is what it was, because my friends were doing it. I saw somebody on social media doing it. He was one of the most successful people I knew. And I'm like, damn, there must be something to that. So I messaged him. I said, what is this all about? And he told me the rules. One of them was not drinking for 75 days straight. And, and I told my wife this, and she laughed her butt off. She's like, there's no way in hell you can do that. And then to me, like, I won't do anything unless it's really hard, like challenging, right? Like quitting the job, starting the businesses, doing bigger deals, etc., moving to Costa Rica, Florida. And so to me, that was such a hard challenge. Like, I mean, it's okay. This is what is going to make this challenge worthwhile if I can actually do that. And when I did it, that was the first time I didn't have booze in my system, probably since I was like 15 years old. And, weekend warrior, right? You work hard, you play hard. That was the vision. That was the slogan on my vision board that we created when we got into real estate. And when I stopped drinking and focused on my body first time, it was just like, that's when everything got better. I became a better person. I didn't live with regret, and I became a better father. I got more courage. So I did bigger development deals. But it wasn't like that fixed it. 75 days hard. And then booze kind of came back into my life. I started surrounding myself with the same people, and old habits became the new norm again. Right. But I realized I got on the path, fell off of it, and I knew I needed to get back on that path. That was the first time, and it's 2021. And it took this long to really realize what the problem was. And so once I cut out the booze and started focusing on my body and on fitness, then I permanently fixed the mindset. I permanently became a better father. I permanently became a better entrepreneur, just obviously.
Is there any temptation right now, or like you completely like throw that out of the window?
Yeah, I changed my identity. I think that the biggest thing that we have to do as adults, especially at this age that we're at. For me, I remember identifying as who I was when I was like 16 to 20. Like that was my identity before, essentially I changed my identity in the last 18 months, because now I think I'm an athlete, right? Now I think that I believe that I'm an athlete, because I am. I believe that I'm a great father, believe that I'm a great husband. Before I had these thoughts of like who I was as a kid was who I was, right? As a young adult. As adults, we need to kind of redefine who we are and re-identify ourselves. We need to believe who we are. Like if you want to become a better person, you need to believe you are that.
Yeah.
Right? That's where it all starts. And when I started switching my mindset and starting to really believe that, hey, this is the new me, that's really where the big switch.
Sounds like you thought about the challenge. The challenge is going to be hard to like wanting to achieve that goal. For me, just for all the listeners to know that I quit my drinking literally in January 2024, because I was watching your videos. I was watching your stuff, dumping all the alcohol. And I'm just like, you know what? I do want to actually make a change, like at least for 2024. And then I think the first thing to do is to change my behavior. That kind of makes sense to me. I did that when I was in Belgium, when there's a lot of really good beers around me. I'm just like, you know what? If I can control my mind, really stop doing the drinking almost like every other day, I can probably do that when I go back in Canada.
Yeah.
So I just want to know, like, I had a big why, to be honest. Did you have that?
Yeah, for me to stop drinking, I mean, I was trying to do it, right? Like I did the 75-day hard, and I was trying to and then I realized, okay, to help me stop drinking, the fitness was a big aspect of it. So then I did an Ironman, which was a crazy feat for me, half Ironman. And that really helped. The training really helped me stay focused on training and not having socializing and drinking and stuff, right? But then I figured out, I learned, because our bodies are smart and our brains are smart, to adapt. And I figured out, okay, I can actually have fun, socialize, drink, and do Ironman. But eventually our business, such a situation in early February of 2023, like when the interest rates went like that, we had all these big developments going on. And like, I was living in fear, man. Like we had a massive portfolio. portfolio and it was bleeding us to death, like 300 to 800 grand a month in cash out, right? And no cash coming in. I was drinking to make the pain go away and to make the fear go away, you know, not just to like socialize and have fun and relax, and I realized like I had an epiphany, an aha moment. And we were actually in the Exumas on my 53-foot boat with my family. And I saw my dad just pass prior to this, and he was really hard on himself. So he died at 73 years old. He was hard on himself. He drank, he smoked. He didn't smoke anymore, but he drank a lot. And I realized like I saw myself like my dad, and I ultimately made a decision. I said, you know what? Somebody has to do the hard work, because we are all a product of our environment. The reason I am the way I am today is partially because of, you know, how I grew up, right? And the people around me. And at that moment, I'm like, hey, I need to do the hard work so that way my kids don't have to deal with this type of stuff like I am. So it was the combination of seeing that, right? And making so sure my kids don't have to go through this hardship and this pain and deal with booze. And also I need to realize that I needed to buckle down and solve this big problem that I had. And I couldn't do it by burying my head in the sand and making it go away by drinking. And that's when I told my wife, I said, tomorrow is the last day I'm going to drink. And she says, okay, well, you know, whatever you need, I'll support you. And so we parked the boat and I stopped drinking that day, and I flew to San Diego and I met with my coach and now business partner, Ken Clothier. And within, 2 months, we solved that bleeding problem from going to 300. Like, it was insane, dude. And we were able to put more money in the bank than I'd ever did, right? Because of focus, right? I was surrounding myself with the right people. I was not dulling down the problems. I was solving problems, and I just got super focused.
If we can touch on this even a little while, that's an amazing story right there. That's actually perfect. You nailed so many things in terms of like what people deal with, because like a lot of entrepreneurs and people who are trying to build something, there's stressful moments, and sometimes people end up, and I'm not necessarily talking about like people who end up falling into alcoholism. We're just talking about like, I think of people who end up using alcohol as a control mechanism. Like if you go home to your family and you need to talk to your wife, how do you be present and in the moment when you got a million things in your mind that's just distracting you? She's talking to you and you don't even remember what she said because you're in your own space. And sometimes people will come home, crack a beer, and then like, okay, now my brain's slowed down. I can be present, right? And then that becomes such a control tool for people. And then sometimes they justify it. They use it for like a balancing aspect. But you're saying that by cutting it out, you became a lot more focused and you were able to actually address your problems, which obviously sounds way more productive, drinking and like just not thinking about it. How would people who are in stressful situations, obviously cutting out something that would bring you comfort, which also will cause a gap between, let's say, you and your social circle. Very often, like a lot of guys get together to drink, right? And it takes away a lot of comfort elements. Like, how do you overcome some of those challenges? Because there's points of resistance. People will tell you, like your friends will be like, why are you being so weird? There's a curve that's going to be challenging for you to get over. So like, how would you contextualize that in terms of challenge and what you did to overcome?
People are a huge component to this. The people you surround yourself. I mean, but you become the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, right? So if you are the most successful people and you're surrounding yourself with a bunch of drinkers, well, you can plan on not getting any better than what you are today. I mean, it's just proven, right? And so one way to change, your level of success or change the outcomes of life is to surround yourself with the people that are doing the things that you want. So that's just the hard truth, is that yes, people are not going to like this. If you're with the right people, hopefully they'll support you. You don't necessarily need to change friends, but you definitely have to be very aware that who you surround yourself with matter, and they can definitely be holding you back. And I would argue that most times they are, to a certain degree. And so just be prepared. If you really want change, then be prepared to, shed some dead weight in your circle of influence. It's just the hard truth. I mean, it's just the reality. But, so with regards to that, the alcohol does give us, and I was by no means, the definition of an alcoholic, but I definitely used it to have fun, to socialize, to relax, to chill, all of the things. That's still using it. But what it does just destroys our sleep, right? That is the biggest thing that alcohol does. It's not actually the alcohol that really affects us. It's what it does to our sleep that ultimately affects us, right? You do not sleep properly. And then when you don't sleep properly, you get more anxiety and you get more fear and you get this anxiousness. A lot of us think that we actually can use alcohol to calm us down and to help us to go to bed and stuff. It actually does that for a time beer, like maybe for an hour or two, but it actually destroys the rest of your sleep. So you still need to sort that out and solve that problem, right? So it's still, because you still have these feelings. So what I did was really focus on fitness, because fitness can do this exact same thing. If you work out an hour a day or even going for a walk, that will knock down the anxiety. That will knock down the fear. It'll create the clarity and the calmness in our brain that the alcohol actually does. And so it's similar to, I use it like a tool, just like I did for alcohol. So some days if I'm not anxious and like kind of all over people because I'm super A type, my wife will be like, dude, you need to go for a run, right? And I'm like, I know. I just need to, right? Where before it'd be like, oh my gosh, and I need to have a beer. The kids are crazy. Oh my gosh. And I would get the calmness. But if I just go for a half-hour run, 20 minutes, it's like medicine. I come back and I'm a different person. The anxiety's gone. You just like the clarity is just like I can be level. So it's a choice. We all have a choice. You want to use alcohol, or do you want to use fitness? And I'm not an anomaly. This works for everybody.
Yeah.
The biggest difference, by the way, I love what you said about the workout, because I also had to replace distressing myself by working out, by sweating, generate some sweats. So every morning, actually, without alcohol, now I can get up early, feeling a little bit more energized, go for a workout, come back, I'm like ready to go. Throughout the day, if I'm a little tired, instead of trying to like think about a way to escape, just go out there, move your body a little bit. So I actually started believing in, especially after going through like 5 months of I started realizing that moving your body is actually going to generate a lot more energy.
Creates energy, which
creates
is amazing.
energy. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. Right,
Yep.
for the past like decade. Can we talk about the real estate challenge that you went through? Because you said 300, 500K per month, obviously very, very high that normal people can't probably even imagine. How did you overcome that? I understand that changing your mindset was the first thing, but what did you do specifically to actually change your strategy around?
Yeah. So what happened was kind of like, obviously the interest rates going in from, where they were sub 2 or 1, to 7. That just happened so fast. We weren't able to lock anything in. So everything went super high interest rates. And then not only that, we were also big developments. And so there was that sucking a lot of money out while the values of these things were being crushed. So it was kind of like the perfect storm. And the market in the United States really tanked as well where we were. So we bought 6 or 7 properties. They were all under renovation. Then a hurricane hit us when we were trying to finish and sell all these. And you can't sell a property with an insurance claim. So we ended up having to pay for all that cash. So at the end of the day, what we ended up doing, which is probably the best piece of advice I got, which was just sell them quick. And so a lot of people, for example, we thought their value was at 500,000. In a normal world, you'd list it for 550. And you'd play the game, right? It doesn't work when the market's declining. We were doing this. We were chasing the market down. So we were always staying above it. So what we did was got below it. We just said, hey, if we think it's worth 500, we're going to go for 485, 475 and just sell them fast. And so what that really did, we listed all the portfolio and listed everything that was in the red, that was either bleeding because higher interest rates or maintenance costs, etc. And we just started selling them really fast, as fast as possible. And that ultimately is what really helped, because that obviously stopped the bleeding on those particular properties, but then also loaded up the bank account with cash because we did have equity. Like that bleeding is still not over though. We got it to a point where it wasn't going to bankrupt us, and we did that relatively quick. So in our world, we were fortunate. Portfolio had enough equity that it could support that type of move and that amount of bleeding, right? That is still true for most people though. Like, a lot of people thought, hey, we're just going to wait this out. If you start to wait, it's been 2 years and it could still be another 2 years, right? So doing a reset like this is fine. And I think that's where a lot of us got stuck. We're like emotionally attached to these properties where we just can't, right? The bandwidth, what happened once I was able to free that up, and although yes, we didn't make nearly as much money, but once I freed up the bandwidth and solved that problem, I could actually live my life. The stress of living in that situation is just robs you of like real problem solving ability, and then the ability to actually generate more revenue. And so once I did clear it off relatively quick, I was able to have bandwidth back to actually, focus. Okay, what is the next strategy? What do we need to do? What would we have done different? Selling properties quick was one of the ways that we solved problems. But one of the things that we did wrong that got us in that situation in the first place was we didn't have any other income streams besides rental properties. I know everybody, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all the books say just buy rental properties and retire forever. Well, that's kind of bullshit. You need cash flow. And then the reality is that there isn't a property in Ontario that's going to provide you enough cash flow to live happily ever after, right? So I think it's a great way to create wealth, but it's not a great way to create a lifestyle that is recession proof, because we've seen it. Yeah, so I would have created another income stream. We started doing this, an excavation service business, which would just generate a ton of cash. Just have another way to create revenue. And because you're seeing that now, like the people that have survived, they have another income stream.
I feel like a lot of people, especially now, will find that highly relatable. You see a lot of people actually in the real estate world, especially certain gurus, they disappear. And a lot of the ones that do, I think, are known for being strictly investors sometimes. They don't have a an entrepreneurial affinity. I actually like that you even said, like, I think you said a landscaping business or something like that, right?
Yeah, it was an sewer and water excavation company.
Okay, yeah. So even
Yeah.
something like that, by the way, that's great because I think for a lot of people who are in investment, people are often looking for like the sexy business or something that is a little more attractive, right? But that's a great line of work that, especially if you're going for government contracts or something like that, like there's a lot of stability. So it's great to hear that you would consider even, having a business like that just to make sure to increase revenue. But just looping back really quickly, I want to touch on this because a lot of people have been dealing with this. Your decision to sell, obviously that would incur certain losses. A lot of people are sometimes have struggled with the decision to either sell right now at a loss or should they wait until it becomes slightly profitable. Obviously, you decided unloading quickly is the way to go. But was there anything that you can tell us about how you justify the losses?
We were luckily enough. I mean, we definitely lost on some properties, not necessarily in Canada because we don't held them for long enough, but in the US, because it was short term, there was a pretty big dip. There wasn't a big loss on all of them, but I consulted with a bunch of investors and they were in that situation. And it's just like the loss, once the loss is done, it's done. But that frees up the bandwidth to create more money. While you're sitting there and you're trying to constantly like find $1,000 or $2,000 every single month to rob Peter to pay Paul, you are not functioning your property and you don't have the bandwidth to actually go out into the marketplace and make more money. Peel the Band-Aid off and take it now and then refocus and re-strategize and figure it out. Like the thing about it is that taking a loss is okay. Like we lost millions of dollars this last 2 years, millions. And I'm fine with that. I mean, I just know because I know I'm coming back stronger. I learned a lot of lessons and like I know how to make money, right? We are not going to have a W on every game. It's impossible, right? So as long as we're honest with our, hopefully there's no investors included in this, but if there is, I mean, you have to do those relationships right. A lot of that comes down to communication, right? I mean, we definitely had a couple situations that didn't perform as well as projected in the last 2 years. You have to solve those problems by communicating properly, right? And just making it right. I mean, the sooner you peel the Band-Aid off, ultimately, the better. And so you can get bandwidth and get back to making money.
Yeah. Because focusing on the offense, like an offensive play, is going to be a lot easier than try to stabilize. Well, not even stopping the bleed. Try to like feed in the bleed so that you're okay. Yeah. Got it. You talk about one thing that's actually something that we've been talking to a lot of real estate investors, that you need to have an active business income, right? Because we actually learned our lesson back in 2017 when we structured a 50-50 structure. I think it's a highly discussed model in real estate industry, right? You raise all the capital, you take 50% profit. But 2017, when there's a little dip in the market, we learned that we literally couldn't make any money because there's not enough cash flow. We couldn't sell the project. And that really gave us a lot of stressful time. And then that's why we changed our business model into, okay, how do we draw more active income so that when time like this happens again, at least we have active income and we don't necessarily need to always take 50% of the equity. We can take less, but we need to be protecting our business income over the passive income from the real estate. So I really love what you said about that because I do find that a lot of people are struggling in today's market because they completely neglect the business revenue.
Yeah, fully agree with that. And we always did that with regards to like our strategy. We would create, have some faster money where we'd be flipping as well as doing burgers and buy and hold. So we were always trying to do that, but it was all real estate, right? And so when this happens, like what's just happened, it doesn't matter what you're in. It's just you're not flipping houses, so if flipping houses was your active income, which ours was, you're kind of, that's done, right? And so, and I think there's lots of verticals in real estate that are real estate related or at least touch real estate where you can generate, a couple $100,000 in without a ton of extra work. You're always in contact with people that own real estate, sell real estate. Like if you do this properly, it's definitely doable for everybody.
One more question. So here's the thing. A lot of Canadian investors are struggling, especially in Ontario and BC. We talk to them almost on a daily basis right now. And more people are thinking about pivoting to the US market. You've done that move a few years ago. What do you need to prepare for? And when's the right time to actually make a move? Because moving family or moving a business down south is a crazy move to a lot of people. How do you process all of that?
Yeah. So number one, you should do it now before Trump gets in. But yeah, I mean, the time is always now. It's the 0 to 100 mindset. I mean, there is no perfect time. That's what we can all agree to that. And so we went down there in 2019. We bought this big boat in Florida. We actually took it, did the Bahamas and the Florida Keys for a whole bunch of months. And then we ended up in Jack. We tried to get into the US market then. And we just didn't know anybody that was doing it. We couldn't figure out how to set up entity structures, couldn't figure out what was the strategies that we just couldn't get any information. And we just hit all the roadblocks and it just didn't come to fruition. This time, what I did, because I find it very hard to do due diligence or research like remote at that point I did anyway. And it's because you don't get enough traction. And when you don't get traction, you're going to quickly lose confidence and you're going to feel that you're going to lose momentum. And essentially it's going to peter out and stop. This is what happens to people. This time when we went down in 2022, it was December of 2022, I didn't have a plan. We just fully committed and we literally packed up the vehicle, expedition full of all the kids' stuff, and we're going down for the winter. And so we went down, went to a mastermind, created relationships, because there's a big thing about difference about Canada market versus the US market. US market is massive. There isn't this like, although people say in Canada, they're very like open and willing and sharing, it's not really the truth. I mean, it is such a small market that it's very competitive, even though we're nice to each other. But down there, it is such a massive market that you truly can create amazing relationships that you can make a ton of money on. And so the first time, and I didn't know this until I did know I needed to create relationships. So I went down, went to a mastermind, created a relationship, figured out what they were doing. And I said, okay, I'm just going to go down and buy a bunch of properties. So I did that. I bought 6 properties, fast. So I just got in so deep, I can't get out. Right. But I created a lot of momentum. And when you get momentum, you're going to end up sticking with it. And so that is one of the biggest things that I feel like people are lacking in today's world. Like in Canadians, I talk to them all the time and they go down, they're talking to me because we help people get E2 investor visas and we help them. Like there's grants that can pay for your kids' private school. We have all this stuff figured out because we've done it. So we help Canadians do that. But a lot of people will go down and be like, yeah, okay, we're going to go down and we're going to check it out for 2 weeks. They'll come home and like, oh no, we're not going to do it anymore. 90% of the Canadians that I talk to, that happens to. And so why is that? It's because they lose courage. Somehow they don't have the courage, right? And for whatever reason that is, but I'm saying that out loud so everybody can recognize this in themselves when they get cold feet and they're about to pull back, because it's going to happen to 90% of the people that are listening. They need to avoid that. You have to commit ultimately. And so the biggest thing that when you go down there is to have the right people in your corner. So you need to have somebody that knows the blind spots that you don't know. So whether that's a mastermind or a coach or somebody like me that could help you with an E2 visa or financing or whatever you need, but you need to have people in your corner, right? And that understand the Canadian nuances, because there's just a lot of different things going on. And a lot of these little things, whether it's getting financing or setting up your entity structure or managing contractors, not getting sued, like all of these things are just different for Canadians, and they will jam you up and potentially slow down, the actual dream, right? And so, for me, that's what we did. We just committed and figured it out. And of course, it didn't go well. It didn't go perfect, but we're still there. And, the business that we've created now is amazing. And the relationships that we've created now are amazing. And it's like, the amount of zeros that are possible, it's literally 10x. So, we used to do 25 to 35 deals a year, which is a lot based on the Canadian market. But, down there, my friends can do anywhere from 100 to 1,000 deals a year. Like one of my business partners, their company does 1,000 a year. And that's possible. 50 is possible for anybody down there, right? So if somebody in Canada was doing 5 to 10, then they could easily do 50. That's just because of how fast money moves, the availability of money, and how many more real estate properties there are on the market, right? And access to data. Data is
important.
Yeah.
Insane, right? So you can do all of this from Canada. You don't have to go down there if you don't want to, but highly recommend it. It's warmer.
I have a couple of questions just about like the E2 visa. I was wondering if it gives you the same roughly amount of privileges as you would American there in terms of qualifications and anything else. The E2 visa, like I know that you need generally between $100,000 to $200,000 to it, but do you find that there's any limitations to it for somebody getting that and moving in?
We're still considered a foreign national. It doesn't matter whether you have an E2 visa or not. You still, like from a lender's perspective, from borrowing money, you're still a foreign national. So what that means is generally the loan to value might be a little bit less and the interest rate is going to be generally a little bit higher, but you can still get 100% loan to cost purchase it like renos or fix and flip loans, 100% of the purchase and under 100% of the renos. Like there's lenders that will do that. You still have unlimited capital, no problem. You just pay a little bit more. And if there is a loan to value ratio, it might be a little less. Refinances is another thing that happens that's a little bit trickier. But the thing about it is if you stick to it and commit to it, create the right relationships. I mean, the banks are relationship banks. These are private people that own banks. So you can create the right relationships that, will allow you to do whatever you want in the US. But yeah, they're a little bit tighter for a national Canadian, even with an E2 visa.
Yeah. But when you go, I'm assuming then, since you're saying relationship based, that as you go and demonstrate the process, you can start to really like close that gap between you and like an American citizen.
Yeah, 100%. And you can also leverage like the relationship track record that you have in Canada as well. You don't necessarily need a track record in the US to get, unlimited money. You can use your track record in Canada.
Got it. Okay. That's amazing.
Yeah, a lot of people have that kind of concern exploring the options in the US market. We find out that a lot of people are actually 95% of people have two questions. How is the lending option works? How do we avoid the double taxation? So
Yeah, double tax is easy. Again, it's all just making sure that you're connected to the right person. I mean, everybody, they try to do it alone, right? I think, and that's the biggest mistake because number one, you don't know your blind spots, right? So you're probably going to make mistakes and they are costly ones. They could be costly. They're likely going to be. I mean, they generally are. So don't do it by yourself. I think that's the biggest thing is surrounding yourself with the right people, whether it is a coach or just other people that can help you or that have already done it.
yeah, mastermind. That's
Yeah,
important.
mastermind. Like, I mean, any of that stuff.
This might be an offshoot question, but I was talking to somebody about it yesterday. They have an active business in Canada and they were looking to register an arm of it into the US and they were looking to see whether or not they can employ themselves in the US and get a US work visa through their own corporation operating. Do you have any understanding of how that works or?
I didn't go that route. I do know some friends that do, but what we do is we rely on immigration lawyer that we let give all that great advice. I mean, obviously we've got all the relationships to get that problem solved if that is the easiest route. But what we generally do when we're helping our clients get visas is make the connection and sit on a call with them and explore all those options. What is the easiest path? And it also relates to where do they want to ultimately go? Do they want to get a green card down there? Because all of these things ultimately matter as well. And, who else is involved? Family, how long the business has been involved here. There's a lot of different things that are going to vary based on, their situation.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
This question has been in my mind for a while. So how do you manage all of that? Because you're talking about like Ironman, the marathons, right? You're really focused on your fitness. You have multiple business. You have the real estate portfolio that you're still operating. How do you manage all of that throughout the day? Like, can you walk us through your daily routine?
Yeah, I mean, so I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. So generally, I just go to work. I mean, I wake up, have coffee, hop in the office, and I'll smash out on it. Have you guys ever had like these? Joe Rogan talks about it's like these brain pills. I call them brain pills. It has mushrooms in it and all kinds of good stuff. But this stuff makes you focus like it's insane. I have a discount code if anybody wants one. But so I'll eat that stuff, dude. And so I'll be able to sit there from like 5 in the morning. And if I want to, till like 7 at night and crush the priorities, like super dialed in, super focused. So that really helps. But that's generally what I do. So I'll work till actually 3 or 4 until I'm just like, and then I'll get my fitness in usually in the afternoon. There is no secret morning routine because I think that is kind of bullshit and fluffy. Like the ultimate thing to have success is just do the work. That is the biggest thing. There has to be fitness every single day. I mean, not every single day, but I would say 5 to 6 days a week. I'm working out. And so whether that's a run, strength, and then on the weekends, I do all my long stuff. So if I'm training for a 50-mile 100-mile or Ultraman, any of these really long things, like those weekends can be intense. And so a lot of the big question is, how do you manage that? And so, I'll wake up really early in the morning, do the 3 or 4 hour run. That way, by the time the kids wake up, I'm back. Yeah, there is no fancy routine. It's just wake up and do the work. And stay focused, right? That is the biggest thing, focused and consistency. So I would also say, so on the weekends, people are like, treating the weekend differently than every other day. And every day for me is the same. I always wake up at 4:30 in the morning and I always go to the office and work on my priorities every single day. 7 days a week, right? Because if I do that on Saturday and Sunday, that's an extra, even for just 3 hours, 5 o'clock in the morning till 8, right? Everybody's sleeping. That's 6 hours a week. You do the math, how many more, like it's weeks and weeks and weeks extra effort that I'm working on and this could be focusing on your family, your fitness, your relationships, your business, anything, right? Your priority. And so that's really how you get ahead. It's by being relentless and staying consistent and doing the same every day. This is life, right? I'm not living for the weekend. No, I'm living for today. And so when you start to treat every single day like that, and you're always focused on your priorities, you're going to have a lot more success. I will add to that though, like how I'm able to run on these businesses is by having the right people around. Obviously I couldn't do it without my wife, Christy. She's the CEO of the family. I don't have to, although I'm at the sport, we have dinners together and certain things like she looks after the family. I look after the businesses right now, but like hiring the right people and hiring them based on core value is the biggest thing that I've learned in the last 24 months. And so, core core values are like the guiding, it's how we hire, it's how we fire. And I've said I did this for a little while. Like I've had core values, I would say for probably 4 years in our company, but I didn't live it, eat it, and breathe it until the last really the last 6 and 7 months. What happened though is I filled a company, 15 people in the last 6 months with people like myself, not like myself, but have the same drive, that have the same core values. We do the work. We don't make excuses. We go above and beyond. We do what we said we do. If your entire company is full of those people and you don't hang around a bunch of people that want to party all weekend, and if you focus on your fitness and you focus on your relationships, like making money is the easy part, right? That's ultimately, I mean, these are some of the things that it really gets down to looking after your body, right? Getting enough sleep, looking after your body, and being around the right people.
I have a couple questions. These will be like relatively more on the personal side. First things first, you mentioned how you structure your day. I think a lot of the times when people wake up early, sometimes they do it because they have a lot more things to do. Do you have anything in your day that you definitely don't want to do, that you kind of allocate to a certain part of the day? Because I feel like we all have things that's just like, oh man, I have to do this. And someone's like, okay, just knock it out early. But do you like allocate those things to a certain part of the day, or structure like positive things that you enjoy first, maybe the gym, and then go deal with the more challenging stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think like working out and like doing the fitness is generally the hardest part for most people. I mean, it's why people don't do it. It's inconvenient and it's hard. So when I was getting into it and wasn't as committed as I am now, that it was always the very first thing that I did. Because what will happen, hopefully everybody's read the book Atomic Habits. And if they haven't, they should read it. You know, one of the best books ever. But, you know, they talk about stacking habits and making good habits easy and hard habits or bad habits hard. We have to be, if fitness is one of those things that you struggle getting in, then you have to make it extremely easy, which one of the easiest ways is to do it first thing in the morning, because often our day can get derailed commonly, like throughout the day, like all kinds of stuff happens. And then if that is left till later in the day, that's probably one of the things that's not getting done. So I would always get it done first. You know, so, but now I'm so committed to it, I will do it regardless. When you start to use it as medicine, the fitness as medicine, it becomes a necessity to become the person that you want to become. Yeah, that's with regards to fitness. I think that's probably just true for most people, right? So they have to trick themselves how to do that. But like from a job, like from work and that type of thing, there's nothing that I don't enjoy doing anymore, but there's certain things that I would put off, right? Because they're like lower on the priority pool or lower on my love list, right? Those things all get time in the calendar, right? So non-negotiable, block it in the calendar. So although most of us have a to-do list and a notepad, you know, and I used to live, eat, and breathe by these things. Now what I do is I'll write it down on here, but I'll block time in the calendar for the things that need to get done. Otherwise, they just stay on the list, right? And naturally we'll do what's easy. That's a human habit. So that's why the hard stuff, or the more, you know, the harder conversations or some of the tax stuff that you don't love to do will always get pushed onto the next page, onto the next page. You just got to take those things, put them in your calendar, block time, and then you wake up. I would generally do the most important things first thing in the morning, not the hardest things, most important things for me at least. And so most important things are generally the ones that we don't like to do, and I'll always do that first thing in the morning, right when I wake up. By the way, they're all natural brain pills. They don't like they're
I was just Googling some of the ingredients on it, and yeah, I did notice that it has a lot of natural stuff in it. Well, interesting one is cat claw, I think, says that it has some in it, which I thought is a very interesting. You know what's interesting is that people are saying that yeah, it works. The biggest comments seem to be about price. I guess it's on the expensive side for a lot of people.
Yes, no, but I mean, it's just, again, it's perspective. It's like we have no problem going to spend $100 at a restaurant and drinking a bunch of beer, but we won't spend $100 on our focus. That'll make us millions.
I always love hearing people who are at least have that push mindset, that push mentality, how it is that they're treating their body, because like people have different choices that they make, and some things are not as convenient. Like I know some guys, they juice a lot of vegetables, for example, right? They're all about that consuming stuff. And so people look for things that are a little bit more convenience that fit their lifestyles. Like if I have work to do I really have all this time to spend in the kitchen? Well, then you hire somebody. And then it's like, okay, well then also like, is there like a supplement I can take? And is there a supplement that actually works? And now the research doesn't seem to end. It's nice to hear when somebody's doing something, you can actually attest to its effectiveness of, you know, helping you focus.
Yeah. Oh, dude, focus is like a superpower if you can do it. I've never been able to focus. Probably was my testosterone levels. But yeah, I'd never been able to focus. Like, so before I would always have like 2 to 3 hours max. So if I was running pro formas, analyzing sites, doing anything with accounting, I would have like 2 or 3 hours max first thing in the morning. I'd always have to get it done then. And then my day is kind of like the noisy part, which is the rest of it. Like I can stay focused on whatever I want as long as I want. It just connects the dots. It connects, like, even when we're having a conversation like this, it connects what I'm saying now to the thought that I need to talk about next. You know, if I'm going to speak on stage, it really helps. It helps me and it helps a lot of other people.